a lot of the time we're thinking about, what sort of planet are we leaving for our kids? But I also want us to think about what sort of children we're leaving to our planet. The children are stewards of the earth, and we can't expect them to look after it unless they feel close to it, unless they smelt it and touched it and tasted it.
Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Hi there.
Hi there.
Alex is a researcher in the field of human-nature interactions and the relationship between humans and the rest of the natural world. She takes a lifespan perspective and focuses on human and planetary well-being. Her latest work explores dirty play, tactile, playful interactions with soil and other biodiverse natural materials, which has been found to support children's health and well-being.
Yes. You make it sound very exciting.
It is exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Sure.
You've been going in this direction for a long time.
Yes, I came to it late in life.
Okay.
So I was a teacher for many years, and I was attracted to research. It was a circumstances. I wanted to know more. And then I became a mum and to two very active young boys, and they came into our lives very close together. So I found nature again as a parent and sort of realized just how different my children were when we were in nature, how different I was. And it just happened to be the one place that we could all be regulated and happy together for quite a long time, actually, while they were little. And that inspired me to go into that research. So my research in that space is actually about as old as my eldest, which is 13.
Okay.
Yes.
It's good. I have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, so.
Well, yes, 13 and 11. Here we are.
Okay. We're in the thick of it. Yeah.
We're in the thick of it. We're in what researchers in the Nature Connection literature call the teenage dip, actually.
Well, and certainly now, whether it's phones or what they want to do with their peers.
Yeah.
What is, how do you describe the teenage dip?
So this is from research, not my own.
I shouldn't call my teenager a teenage dip.
No, it's not personal. It's not personal. This is population level statistics.
Okay,
Let's just say that. Nobody's a dip and nobody has a dip. But researchers at the University of Derby have sort of taken a snapshot of the population and the nature connectedness of different age groups. And they find that it starts off very, very high, age 6, 7, which is when we really are able to measure nature connectedness. But of course, anyone who works with younger children know that younger children tend to be even more nature connected. They start off really curious and close to the natural world. So it starts really high, age 6, 7, and it stays high up until about 12, 13, where we see that dip. And that dip, unfortunately, continues for a long time. And our nature connection doesn't recover until about early 30s.
Oh, wow.
It's a long time. I have a bit of a theory there, which I haven't empirically tested yet. But if anybody wants to give me a ton of money to do this research, they're very welcome. But I think becoming parents actually has an impact on how we rediscover the natural world. And I don't know, but this is certainly what happened to me and what I've seen happening to a lot of my friends, is that our children are actually agents of change in our own connection to nature. Initially, we start taking them out because that's what people do with kids, fresh air or whatever. But then there is a feedback loop of then the kids enjoy it and they drive it, and then we enjoy it and we drive it, and it becomes a positive reinforcement loop for all of us. I don't know if that's the case, but this is my sort of couch hypothesis.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it makes sense of like you get to rediscover it. Yeah, with your
Yeah.
children and slow down. You know, I'm interested. I've been talking about this idea of Earth speed, being on Earth speed,
Mm.
and it's like following the the ladybug suddenly. And I think about grandparents too. Suddenly are on the speed of toddlers,
Yeah.
moving and exploring and rediscovering it. And I remember in my 20s when I was kind of doing the natural play and getting into this, and I would go. I grew up going to the beach or the ocean, a week or two a year. But then I had these little cousins, and then they were 4 and 5, and suddenly there was the ocean, and it was speaking to them. That I remember and as a 20-year-old, it didn't speak to me, but then suddenly I recognized there it is, the call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, absolutely. I really think, and we're seeing it through their eyes and through the wonder of, the way that a child sees things afresh and new, and everything is so exciting.
yeah. Reminds us. Oh yeah, the world
Yeah,
is
yeah,
incredible and wild and unpredictable, and
it is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
wonderful. My little niece, who is 3, I was with her last week, and she saw her
Mm,
first rainbow,
mm,
and she was looking at it, and she didn't quite work out what it was because she'd seen rainbows in books, and they are very different in books than they are in real life,
mm.
and it was see-through, and she was looking at it going, is that the rainbow? And it was just a magical experience. And I'll remember her first rainbow. I don't remember my first rainbow.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That just reminds me of the rainbows in Scotland, and
Yes,
I did
we
not
get a lot
know.
of those.
You get a lot of those. I saw a lot when I was over there. In fact, one of the most epic ones of my whole life. It was like up at what's that, the castle, where was it? Stirling Castle, and looking off into the distance, and it was like a full, and we were like the same height of it because we were
That's
up
amazing.
high. It
Yeah, and
was
you get double
incredible.
rainbows, and you get full circle rainbows, and amazing, amazing things.
Yeah. Well, I remember that as a parent of and I always like to think about that. It's like this is the first time my son has seen a fuzzy caterpillar. This is the
Yes,
first time yeah, and to
yeah,
get to that live that and then that's a nice thing for teachers or educators or early childhood educators. They get to experience that. If
yeah. And what a privilege it is, right, to be
mm,
there.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna, I told you that keynote. I was just like taking notes and so excited to hear. So there's some things I want to pull from that. In my notes, I'm like, I want to find out more. But I liked how you kind of just start off by talking about the evolutionary mismatch of like
Yeah,
us as a species versus where we are today or where we started. So could you talk about
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yes, well, we are apes. We are hairless apes, but we are apes, and we have evolved over the last 300,000 years or so to live in. We're incredibly adaptable, actually, as species. No other ape lives in so many different biomes, but humans have adapted to live in tropical rainforests and the savanna, which is where we started, of course, and can live in boreal forests. We don't have many limitations, and we are incredibly adaptable, and we're kind of abusing this adaptability because we've created something wonderful. Which are cities. And cities are wonderful because they're places of opportunity, places where people can come together. It's places of knowledge and work and creativity and all the wonderful things that cities bring. And we are largely now, or 8 billion of us, an urban species. Most of us live in cities or other urban centers. But unfortunately, the environment that we've created in cities is not one that we have evolved to be in. It's a lot noisier, grayer, and it doesn't have all the things that we've evolved to psychologically find safe and where our happy places. And this is what we're seeing, more and more. We're seeing, mental health crises. We're seeing also metabolic health crises, diabetes and heart disease, and all these uh, diseases that are actually part of us living in urban centers and modern
Hmm.
lifestyles.
Hmm.
So, taking various parts of the city experience, which it wasn't intentionally designed like that. You know, nobody said we're going to make them really, really loud, but we know now from the research that the loudness of cities, the noise, can actually have an impact both on our psychological health and how stressed we feel,
Hmm.
but also on things like children's cognitive development, how quickly they pick up speech, how large their vocabulary is, etc. It impacts, you know, there is a lot of input in a city.
Mm.
There is constant input.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I live in a small town in Scotland. I can't hear the traffic from where I live. Very occasionally, I can hear the odd car driving past. But I recently went and stayed with my brother in Athens, and lying lying down to sleep at night, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I can hear so much human activity from, you know, he lives in an apartment block. There's a busy road underneath. I could hear somebody flushing their toilet on a different floor of the apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
I actually became acutely aware of how close I was. Of course, there were walls between us, but to the people next door who I could hear walking and talking, not clearly, but
Mm-hmm.
there was noise, there was activity,
Mm-hmm.
sirens, and, you know, there was constant input.
Right.
And
Constant input.
we think it doesn't affect us, but it impacts us, both in terms of the cognitive load, but also, and on the flip side, it's missing a lot of the things that restore our attention, restore our psychological well-being, and these are natural soundscapes, natural landscapes, the color green, looking out into the distance, all of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like city people, they go to the woods and it's like they almost feel assaulted by the quiet or the
Yeah.
lack of all that ambient. Like, and you get used to that, right? You get numb to it, and that's
Yeah, and I'm not sure that getting used to it means it doesn't impact you
yeah, yeah,
physiologically.
right.
I think it still impacts you on a physiological level,
Yes.
and some of us are more sensitive than others. So I understand there are individual differences as well, and some people are more able to cope. But that doesn't mean it's good for us, and it doesn't mean that, you know, we have evolved for that space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we almost like maybe get shells, we develop shells around ourselves to be able to withstand it or, get through
Yeah,
it. But like,
yeah,
oh, how are we leaving to not to have
yeah.
that?
And also considering, and I know we'll probably talk about childhood, but children's development is impacted. Children's brains are, we know, incredibly plastic, and they're growing, but that makes them also very, very vulnerable to these environments, which is, of course, why things like nature nurseries and even kindergartens and natural spaces are important in childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that kind of the two different ways of like you can take children to nature, or I think about design. I'm a designer, come from that side of
Yeah,
things of like, okay, how can we bring nature in? How do we design that?
yeah,
And
yeah.
knowing that it's good. You talked about like 20 minutes in nature can make a big deal, big effect.
Yes, so this is research. Again, it's population level research, so then we weren't looking at each individual, and they looked at epidemiological data to suggest that there is a minimum dose that can impact our well-being, and it's 120 minutes a week, which
Okay.
can be in chunks,
Okay.
but also in terms of our physiological response we start going into our rest and digest about 20 minutes into being in a natural environment. And again, what is a natural environment? You know, what are the active ingredients of nature? This is all very, very interesting, and it's being unpicked by research. So, for example, even touching natural surfaces like oak wood rather than metal or plastic surfaces changes
Uh,
our physiological response, our skin conductivity, and other measures. So we can shift slowly our spaces into more natural spaces in easy ways. We don't simply have to think of nature as a on-off switch. Yes, this is a natural space. No, this is a unnatural urban, whatever.
Okay.
There are ways to bring nature into our school environments, our home environments. We know that having flowers or a plant in the room with you also creates a physiological response. Is it the same as being in a wild forest? Probably not. Is it better than being in a padded cell? Probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to say it's not a binary. It's a continuum, and we can make small changes. And I say this because I talk to people who from inner city Glasgow who, oh, I teach, and it's, my I have a classroom and we don't have an outdoor space. And it's like, okay, what can we do? How can
Mm-hmm.
we bring nature in?
Mm-hmm.
What are the choices you can make?
I love that idea that even the choice of table surface,
Yeah,
the material, that
yes.
that has an effect.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, so what are some of the effects? Like in these 20 minutes, what's going on like in the body? And like I
Yes.
said earlier, like you're reinforcing things we know, but just more the headline of like nature's good. We know somehow nature's good, but what? How?
Yes, so we have a nervous system, as do all animals with a spine. We're not unique in this. And our nervous system, our central nervous system has two branches, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
And ideally, they are in balance, they are in homeostasis, they tend to be balanced. So we are able to go into sympathetic drive, which is our fight or flight. So if a tiger were to walk into your room right now, hopefully you'd be able to respond. It's not coming. I can see. I'll let
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Thank you.
But you're designed to be able to really swiftly.
uh,
There'll be a cascade in your body. There'll be adrenaline, and your pupils will dilate. There'll be stomach moving away from your core into your limbs, so you can run or you
mm,
can fight.
mm-hmm.
You're getting ready. Your breath will get shallow. Your heartbeat will get quicker, so you can start running, and you're ready to go. That's our fight or flight. It's a great thing. It's kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years. And then there's our parasympathetic system, our
Mm-hmm.
parasympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic drive, which is our rest and digest. And this is where it's the end of the day, we've done our hunting, we go back to our cave and we sit around the fire with our other cave people and we tell stories and we have our food and we digest it and we sleep and we rest and we're safe and we feel safe. And we have evolved, not just us, all animals have evolved to be able to do that and to go from
Mm,
one state to the other readily. What happens when we are in cities and we are in stressful environments and we have jobs and we have, stresses and we haven't paid the rent and there's a bus coming past and it hoots at us, we get stuck into that sympathetic drive and we are
mm,
always on. There's a lot of
yeah.
input.
Yeah.
We're trying to see, well, actually, our body's still scanning. Is there a tiger coming out? Is
Mm-hmm.
there a is there a threat in the horizon? And that keeps us in that state. Elevated blood pressure, elevated cortisol levels, elevated heartbeat. We can't rest and digest. We find it very difficult to switch off.
Yeah.
And nature is able to shift us into that state. So when we're in nature, there are various physiological and psychological changes that happen that shift us
That bring it
into
down. That.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And
And
so
we
the
need that.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so nature can like, like we think about the city person going to the nature or any of us, but suddenly like, yeah, we could feel it. Our breath
Yeah.
changes, right? Right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And then so then to be bathing in that rest and digest, how is that good for us? What's going on there?
Well, so I mean, I call it rest and digest and learn. I think it's a time for connection. It's a time for being with others. It's a time where we're able to take things in. It's time that we can start synthesizing thoughts and be creative. It's no wonder that lots of artists will find themselves in natural spaces, both to capture the beauty of nature, but also just to create, those natural, those creative thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a good state to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see like artists who live in the city. What is their art like versus artists who are, yeah, living in the country or.
Yes, yes, and I say we are very adaptable, and a lot of us thrive in city environments. A lot of us find them
Mm-hmm.
incredibly stressful. We're
Yeah.
not all the same. There are individual differences, but for a lot of us, we miss that natural experience. We miss nature. And to find ourselves in that natural space can actually bring that balance into our lives. And, we create interventions. And I don't know if you know this, but the National Health Service here in Scotland, has green prescribing. They will prescribe natural experiences to people.
Oh, okay.
So instead of giving you diabetes medicine, I might say, you are going to go into the park and exercise with a group for 6 weeks, and we'll see what's happened to your levels of your, HA1C, HA1C or whatever it is. It's quite interesting that it's being brought into as an extra tool, not to replace necessarily, but to augment what we're doing with traditional medicine.
Yes. Yes, that's amazing. And you talked about even like with ADHD
Yeah.
as this form. Yeah.
So there's a bit of evidence to suggest that, and before I go into ADHD, before I go into sort of a clinical diagnosis and conditions, for all of us, nature has a restorative effect on our
Yeah.
attention.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you have ADHD or not, our attention tends to be better when we're in natural spaces. It tends to be restored. So those spaces are restorative. So if you go after a very hard task, there is research to suggest that, after a very hard task, going into a natural space will restore your attention and you can again attempt another hard task.
Mm. Hmm.
As opposed to if you stay in a grey room or if you look at pictures. A lot of it is experimental evidence. So there's people sitting in rooms with computer screens, and some are seeing natural scenes and some are seeing city scenes. But there is also evidence to suggest that with children with ADHD, a 20-minute nature experience can have the same impact on their attention and memory as being on medication,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at a variety of symptoms as reported by parents and also as self-reported by the children themselves. Um, it's no surprise when you actually work out what's happening physiologically, actually. I think it's sort of the next step. But again, why are we not using this in the way that we design schools, in the way that we design learning spaces, in the way that we design our cities? It is coming through, but I'm not sure it's coming through quickly enough, not for my liking.
Uh-huh. Of course. Yeah, we're ready. We're ready for the utopian, yeah,
Yeah.
half nature, half buildings that are part of it.
Yes.
Yes, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Well, and amazing, it's good for all of us, all ages, retirement homes, elders, having that kind of stuff. Yeah, those connections. I was telling you, you mentioned one bit about the idea of fractals.
Yes.
And so I've been thinking about that. Yeah, and the idea of us evolving with nature and a part of it, and like our bodies, if we look at the way our lungs, or our skin, it looks similar to like leaves of plants. Like there's the patterning that we are part of the
Yes.
pattern. So the idea of us gazing in nature at the patterns of ferns and plants
That's right.
and all of it.
Yeah, so you mentioned fractals. I mentioned them very, very briefly in my talk because I don't work with fractals. This has nothing to do with my work, but I had to look it up. I'm prepared, Rusty.
Yes, I was like, give me some fractals.
I looked up at the research. So fractals being those repeating patterns that we find in nature quite a
Okay.
lot.
Yes.
And
Spirals and
yes,
yeah. Yep.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, repeating patterns that happen again and again, and sometimes they are, in different scales scales as well. And I found several papers that look at the physiological response that we have when looking at fractals. There seems to be
Okay.
something that happens to us, and it doesn't have to be natural fractals, so it doesn't just have to be nature. And again, so research is breaking down the components. What is it? Is it the green? Is it the shape? Is it the size? Is it the ore? Is it the phytoncides? Is it what we're breathing in? Is it the bacteria? What is it? Uh,
Hmm.
it is all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is all of it, and we can't. I mean, we can take parts of it, and if you want to make your living room full of fractals, be my guest. But
Uh-huh.
I don't want to lose the beauty and the complexity that is found in our experiencing nature in its real form.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, there's a new walk that I've found. I'm so excited about this spring, and it's been a real pleasure. It's a lot of spring flowers. It's a lot of ferns, and so I've been thinking, all this
It's your
that
fractal walk.
it's my fractal walk. Yeah, and just that pattern. And but then also one of the other things that I really of your keynote that I scribbled and starred was the idea that our brain loves non-directed attention. So I almost
Yes.
think
Yes.
that bathing in it, again, it's like we keep going from like nature to city, or
Mhm.
the nervous system, the one to the other, and it's almost like the focused attention and then the non-focused attention.
Yes. So researchers who work in the area of attention restoration theory talk about the soft fascinations of nature, the things that kind of
Uh,
very gently pull our attention. Like, you're sitting by the side of a creek and you're listening to the water gurgling, and you hear the leaves and you see the dappled sunshine, and it's not calling for your attention. It's not going, look here, which is what's happening when we're potentially in an urban setting, when you're sort of, you're looking out and
mm,
it's not demanding attention. It's kind of
mm-hmm,
softly calling. Those soft fascinations are incredibly restoring.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, we don't have them in many spaces anymore. Certainly we don't have them in our learning spaces and schools.
Hmm.
Schools are all about directed attention, unfortunately.
Yes, yes. Golly, well then even just thinking about like the screens, our phones. I mean, that is just
Yes.
attention. It is directing
Yes.
attention.
Yes.
And how do we even, put
Demanding. It's demanding. It's
yes.
yeah. Yeah, very, very difficult to get your space and you know touch grass, as they say.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, so it's like first there's like you got to pull away from that and then find yourself in another in an
Mm.
environment, your nature environment, or but then it's like you also have to kind of break maybe as an adult, well, as kids too, you have to break that impulse to like, but I want to look at my I want to
Of
look at my
course.
phone. I want to, not me, he mind you,
Yes.
but
No, of course not. No, no, of course not. But I mean, this is again. So this is about executive function. We talk a lot about children's executive function and that impulse control. This is something that children practice throughout their childhood, and
yes.
executive functions grow. It's a skill like any other, and it sits in the front bit of our brain, our prefrontal cortex. It's not fully, we now think it's not actually fully on board until about 30. We thought it
Mm-hmm.
was mid-20s at the age
Oh.
geeks sort of. Um,
That's funny.
but so when you're talking about adults and the impulse to look at our screens, and we use our executive function or not use our executive function to resist the impulse. But we give a phone to a child whose prefrontal cortex is not quite on board, because their executive functions aren't quite on board, and we say, well, you don't look at it. Don't look at it. You have to keep it in your bag. You have to not look at it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
The teenage dips.
Yes. Yes. No, no mentioning of names or people, but I mean, I actually think back to my adolescence, and I didn't get a phone until I was 23, just because of my age. Oh, and when I grew up, but we were lucky. We were very, very lucky to let our
Mm,
prefrontal cortices, our executive function skills develop fully before we were given these devices, or close to fully.
wow.
And we know that nature and interaction with nature helps those executive functions develop. So I mentioned a
Oh,
study in my keynote which looked at about
yes.
600 Norwegian children,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah. Let's hear about
and
that.
followed them from very, very early childhood into early and mid adolescence. And they found that children who'd spent more time in nature during preschool had better executive function, better memory and attention skills in when they entered school in year 1 and 2, so age 7, 8, if you're in Norway.
Hmm.
But then, and what amazing research, it's Alsut et al. And their group published in 2017 and then again in 2024. Then they followed these teenagers when they were 14. They found them again. They lost a few, but they had about 500.
Wow.
And yeah, it's not bad.
Yep.
And they found that actually academic performance was better in those who had spent more time in nature. And the reason why was the ability to
Oh my
direct and
gosh.
shift attention during tasks. So this is exactly what we're talking about.
Huh. Okay. They were because they were in nature, their executive functioning brain was developed in a certain way,
Yeah,
and that helped them with their attention. Could you go
yes.
into that?
How
Yeah. Wait.
how we pay it, yeah, how they
Yeah.
pay attention,
Yeah.
how we shift attention from one thing to the other.
Yeah.
These are key academic skills, but it seems that spending time in the natural world tends to help us with those key skills of shifting attention, of focusing attention, of withdrawing our attention from something and redirecting it to something else. It's not easy. I can't do it. I've just heard my sons have just come in from school and I can hear them and my attention's gone and I have to shift it
Yeah.
to the conversation. It's not an easy skill.
Right. That is a real skill that we don't often think about, but we often think about it in terms of the phone or that the attention or multitasking or
Not to mention play. Can I talk
yes.
about play?
Yes, let's
Yes.
talk about play.
I mean, play is exactly practicing the same skills of controlling my impulses. It looks like a natural flow, but actually, it's training, practicing executive functions and turning attention and directing attention and not being impulsive. And, especially when it's play, social play, when children are interacting with each other,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do whatever you want. There are rules, and that's part of play. Maybe the rules are what you and I have talked about, or maybe it's a game that has set rules, but this is training your impulse control. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you if you're playing football, soccer, you can't pick up the ball with your hands,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's training your impulse.
Right.
That's the rules, and in free play, rules are there and they are understood, and sometimes they're implicit and sometimes they're explicit, and
Mm-hmm.
children will discuss them. I was watching my children a few years back playing The Floor is Lava. Love it.
Yep.
You can play The Floor is Lava wherever you want.
Mm.
They were playing in our lounge, all the cushions were down, and and this is real executive function building and motor skill and social skill. You can't create a task as a teacher that will emulate and will get all the benefits that that game that they were playing could do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think about information and things coming towards the child versus it emanating from the child, and that's them building, that's them playing, and I think that's the having those open-ended experiences and opportunities, time, space, materials, loose parts.
Yeah, yeah. I think we forget time and space sometimes, and the fact that time and space are also affordances. We talk about affordances in nature and in natural environments, and actually, time and space are the two things that sometimes lack, are not there. We don't give our children. It's a luxury. So
Mm-hmm.
we think about the things that we provide them with in terms of, it's a fantastic playground and it's got this and it's got that and it's got that. Does it have time? Do the
Yes.
kids have time?
Yeah.
And is there the space? Do we give them the space?
Yeah. Yeah. We in here in Ithaca we have an adventure playground inspired place that I was a part of called the Anarchy Zone. It's at
Oh, I love
the
it.
children's garden, the Hands on Nature Anarchy Zone. And a friend of mine, Dr. Beth Myers, did her PhD study there, and she looked at the same group of children at the Anarchy Zone, which is messy hills and trees to climb and loose parts, boards and straw bales and mud and all sorts of stuff. And the play that goes on there with buckets and shovels and things versus on the traditional playground equipment. And
Same group,
same group of kids, yep. And
aged.
young elementary. So
Okay.
maybe, yeah,
5, 7,
yep, 5 to
8.
7 to 8. Yep, exactly. And when they're at the Anarchy Zone, the play went on for 2 hours. And the adults that were there were like, who were their counselors, just sat by on the edge. They're like, we don't have to
Nothing to
do
do.
anything, nothing to do. Right. At the traditional playground equipment, when they went back to the place where their headquarters was, it was like 20 minutes. They were able to, now this is the interesting thing. It's like they were able to have kind of play that was not with no conflict for about 20 minutes. But then once 20 minutes hit, there was like scarcity of materials, only 2 basketballs. They have done everything on the play equipment, and then they start using it in ways that it shouldn't be, wasn't designed for. And then
Yeah.
there are all sorts of conflicts. So that alone was interesting. But then it was also then it kind of sad to me that then I thought, well, 20 minutes is kind of like the typical school recess. So yeah,
Yeah.
when the rich play happen, when you have that time, the time and space to really
Yeah.
dig in and do that, let it flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So time and space is a resource, I think. Really, really important.
Hmm. So time, space, and microbes. You like that
Yeah.
transition?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
So we get time, space, materials, and microbes. Tell us about
Yeah.
the microbial world and us.
So I'm not, I'm a social scientist.
Yeah.
I work in the realm of psychology and education and social sciences. But a few years back, I was reading some very, very interesting research on the different ways that spaces impact us. And it was some research by Dr. Jake Robinson talking about the stratification of the aerobiome. For those of you who don't know, and I didn't know, and I had to look it up, what was the aerobiome? The aerobiome is all the microbes, microbial species that float around in the air and they're around us. And it's everywhere because microbes are everywhere. And Jake and their team were talking about the different stratification of the aerobiome in forests, depending on the kind of trees that you had. And I kind of thought that's really interesting. So we get, depending on how tall we are, we get a different dose of microbes
Hmm.
when we walk around a forest. So I
Hmm.
emailed him because I do this and I said, wait a minute, have you thought about how this impacts children and how we design spaces to ensure that children da 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 da. So we started working together, and that was back in 2021, 2022. We started thinking together about spaces designed for children and looking at the microbial aspect and the microbiome aspect. The microbiome is the assemblage of microbes that live in and on our bodies that are part of an organism, humans in this particular instance, or human infants if we're talking about young children. And I think it's an amazing world, the world of microbes. And I've been learning more and more about it. And I've been finding out about how those wonderful, wonderful microbes, our invisible friends, can support our health, our well-being, our mental health, all the processes that happen in our body, from not just our digestion, but also the hormones we produce and the way that we feel about things and just all sorts of things.
So it's almost, they're not invisible, but they're almost invisible. But it's like this
Well, they're invisible to the
to
naked
us.
eye. You
Yes.
can't,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can see them in a microscope, but
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen any actual real ones.
Uh-huh. And yet they're like a part of our life and we don't realize it. And
Yeah.
it's good to have it. I was just talking to another nature play person that is wanting to plant forests at all schools. All elementaries should have forests and the microbiome of the forest floor, and that we should be in that and touching it, and kids should be in that, and that will make them
Yeah.
healthy and their bodies and their nervous systems. And
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens with the microbiome is, and we used to think that that the amniotic fluid that we all start our life in our mum's bellies. We used to think that it was sterile. It isn't sterile. It has its own microbial communities. Depending on how we're brought into this world, our birth actually gives us our first load of microbial goodies, which start colonizing our body and they start becoming part of us. And the first 1,000 days of a child's life are really important in building those communities and then it becomes an interplay between the infant's body and the microbes. The microbes can teach the child's body and an immune system what is a threat and what isn't. So we see that children who are exposed to more microbially diverse environments tend to have fewer allergies, less asthma, things like atopic dermatitis and other such ailments. So it teaches our immune system. We now have evidence to suggest it also supports neural growth and neural development.
hmm,
And yeah, it's really massively important.
wow. And here we were spraying bacterial and sanitizing
Yeah.
everything, thinking we're doing
Yeah.
the right thing. We're trying to keep everything clean, and yet, no, that's killing the important microbiomes.
Yes, exactly. It's we're killing the microbes that make us sick, and less than 1% of all microbes are pathogenic to humans. But
Hmm.
we're also killing all the microbes that keep us healthy. And there are many, many more that keep us healthy than make us sick. So, and I think COVID didn't help at all. And of course, the current hantavirus outbreak as well isn't really helping in that we become quite fearful of these microbes, and we should be. I'm not saying all microbes are good. We all know, there are viruses and bacteria that
Hmm.
are lethal and they
Yep.
are out there,
Yep.
but that's less than 1% of all of the microbes out there. And most microbes are incredibly good for us.
Okay. All right. So if we were looking at nature and it's got the beneficial effects for adults and for children, for nervous systems, for brain development, for allergy, for our attention, and maybe just to kind of finish things off here, what parents and teachers who are interested in this and want to, we talked about even how a wooden table has an effect on you versus the metal table. What can people do for backyards or schools, or yeah, what
Yes.
is your what is your some of your fun advice?
So I would break it down into two main things. So one is nature contact, and think about, you know, either bringing nature in, taking children out into nature, bringing nature into your life. Nature contact is really, really important from childhood onwards, and it's going to be good for you and good for your kids. And go outside. More systemically, if we're thinking about, greening schoolyards, I think is a non-negotiable. It's where they're climate adaptive as well. So we're thinking about, as we're going into increasingly different climate conditions, making our school grounds greener, we know can impact our children in a positive way. It can impact our cities in a positive way because, Not every place has a park, not every neighborhood has a park, but most places have a school. So thinking about microclimates, thinking about biodiversity, all of these things. So greening school grounds for me is non-negotiable. And then using those wonderful green spaces and building them into our everyday life and valuing them. So that's the first thing, is nature contact. So I'm going to say, ensure that your child is getting hands-on, active, ideally freely, non-directed. So let your child explore and play in natural spaces with dirt, with soil, with animals, or, whatever you have access to. And the second thing is, aside from nature contact, which is the one thing, is our nature connection and how close we feel to the natural world. And nature connection is the extent to which we feel we belong to nature, and we feel close to the natural world. And this is something, again, that nature contact alone doesn't magically make it happen.
Okay.
It takes beauty and empathy, and there are a variety of pathways to nature connection, but it has a really big impact on our psychological well-being, but also on our pro-environmental attitudes and behaviors. So, which is why I say, a lot of my work is about planetary, but also personal, but also planetary well-being.
Okay.
So when we realize we are part of the natural world, we want to look after it, we want to take care of it. And, a lot of the time we're thinking about, what sort of planet are we leaving for our kids? But I also want us to think about what sort of children we're leaving to our planet. And, can we think about, the children are stewards of the earth, and we can't expect them to look after it unless they feel close to it, unless they smelt it and touched it and tasted it.
Yes.
So really, really important, nature contact through a variety of means, any way you can. Is it flowers in your living room? Then it's flowers in your living room. And nature connection and supporting that innate need of our children to come close to the natural world.
Amen.
Yes. Preaching to the choir. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. That's what we want to hear. And that's what, so many, the listeners believe in. And, sometimes we just need that spark or that reminder of, we can have big dreams, and sure, we want every school to, to make giant transformations and do everything, but to know that we can step it down and still the little interactions matter. Exactly. All those little things, the flowers, the table, the fuzzy caterpillar and the ladybug, and sniffing pine trees and the whole thing. So, absolutely. All right, Alex, well, thank you so much. It's fun. Great talking to you, mind expanding, heart opening, the whole deal. So yeah, what's my rest and digest system? That's not the
Your parasympathetic.
Yes, I'm feeling it. Feeling it.
Yeah, you're feeling it. Okay, just talking about it. That's great.
Yeah.
If I can have that impact on people, that's wonderful.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks so much, and I look forward in Scotland next year.
Fantastic.
Okay.
See you soon.
Yeah, bye. All right. Thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo, 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.